everybody. I just want to give you guys a 4-minute warning, about 4 minutes before we actually get rolling here tonight. So last chance to go grab your snacks, grab a drink, and we're just accounting for just a little bit of that kooky time. So about 3 or 4 more minutes and then we're ready to roll.
Welcome everybody to the Rossland Museum Discovery Centre. Thank you so much for coming out here tonight. To get started, we want to acknowledge that we live and work on unceded Sinixt Tmulau, or homeland in their dialects and Sealshin. Tonight, we're going to ask you guys to bring home an extra word for you. I'm very thankful that Richie's here tonight. I think in general we're all pretty thankful, so I think it's a pretty apt word to learn thank you in the Sinixt dialects and Sealshin. So if you guys can all remember limlimt, that's thank you. Yeah, exactly. So practice. Ready? Limlimt. Awesome. All right. So if you guys can take that one home, share it around. You guys will be a part of helping to restore the Sinixt language right here in their homeland. And a few housekeeping things before we get started. We are going to have another speaker series coming up here on June 6th. It's going to be on bats. We'll have Elodie Koenert, who's going to come here and give us a great presentation on that. And that one's going to start at 5:30 on June 6th. And I know we don't want to think about how fast the year's coming on us, but Canada Day is coming up too. So you guys won't want to miss come visiting us here for that, because we've got a pretty amazing set of musicians and a number of different things, including another showing of Richie. So you won't want to miss that one either. We will shamelessly plug him every time we can. But, without any further ado, the reason you guys are all here tonight is to come hear Richie tell you some stories. This guy's probably everyone's favorite Rosslander, a legendary person himself, and he's pretty well one of the most important backcountry horsemen that I've ever known. So, without further ado, join me in welcoming Richie up here to sing for you.
Thanks, Tyler, and hope I don't get bit too boring here, but hopefully you enjoy some of the old pictures of the ski hill. And I'm just going to sit down while we kind of go through the slides. And I got my friend working the slides for me, so hopefully it all goes smooth. Thank you. So this first picture you're looking at was given to me by Ray Koziancic, who is an old-time Rosslander. He lives up the Slocan Valley, has a ranch up there. So he gave me this picture. It was taken in 1920, and it was probably taken on the bottom of granite, and I'm thinking from the old Blue Eyes mine up there, which would be just north of where Phil Johnson's property is now. So there's Rossland over there. You see a bit of smoke. And there's Monte Cristo, Kootenai Mountain, Lake Mountain. And so this is showing the old Hollabaugh farm out there. It was a Hollabaugh farm when we were kids. And there's one of the Hollabaugh's old barns. There's a couple of barns in there. And I think this was taken because you can't even see the end of the reservoir yet. So this is taken before that. And so then you come on down the valley here, and this is where the Feeney farm was down here, all down in here. And this was the old Haplavik farm. And over here is where Caldera is now, so that's the bottom of red, just to give you a shot on everything in that picture. Okay, Bren, next one. So you're going to see this map quite a few times through the evening. I thought I'd start at the top end of Rossland, and hopefully if we have time we can end up on the top of Old Glory. So right here is Washington Street, and when I was a kid, this hill, which is Plumin Way, was called the Planer Hill, because there used to be a planer mill right up on the top end of town here, and that's where the wartime houses were built in 1945. And so this here, McLeod Avenue, that was one of the rail grades going over. This is the highway here. So this is one of the old rail grades going over to the Center Star Mine. And the road also went up here and made a corner right there where the tunnel goes under for the Centennial Trail. And that went over to the upper part of the Center Star and the Leroy mines. So right in here, it used to be the Powder magazine, it was called. You remember that, Brian? You might have remembered that.
I remember the foundation.
Yeah, but there was a Powder magazine right in there, and it was cemented right into the mountainside in the bottom of Monte Cristo. In the 1920s, that was a jump hill in the East Trail. And I'm not sure, so it looks like it was all farms, you know, then. It's all nice flat bench land, and I think this might have been a water flume. That's all I can think, because here's the jump hill here. And, yeah, okay, so next. So, Trygg Norra came from Norway in 1927, and he was, skiing had been kind of dying out in Rossland, I guess, around that time. This just before the Depression. And Trygg Norra came from Norway, and he was instrumental in really getting competitive skiing going again. And so they formed the Trail Rossland Ski Club, and in 1927. And then a little later on, in 1933, they decided to split into the Rossland Ski Club and the Trail Ski Club. And this was a picture taken by Pat Archibald. And this is on the east side of Monte Cristo. And the Block Motel sits about here right now. The highway comes right through here. There's the end of the reservoir, the high picket fence I was telling you about. And there's our ski cabin and our small jump hill and our slalom run. Okay, next one.
How did you get up?
Oh yeah, everything was walking in those days. Oh yeah, not very many of our folks, none of our folks had cars. The guys that worked at Cominco took the co-op cars down, and my dad was a carpenter around town. He just carried his tools on his shoulder around town. So this is an earlier picture. I should have had this one first, I guess, because this is probably when they first built the Rossland Ski Club. And look at the crowds of people coming out for the jumping, eh? And so later on they cleared this area here for a slalom run. So anyway, I can remember Trig Nora coming over to do an exhibition jump off the jumps here on one ski and landing on one ski. He was an amazing athlete. And I know one time he did an exhibition, he came over the jump with his daughter Helen in the pack sack on his back. Yeah, that was it's quite something. So here you can see the top of the jump here and the reservoir. Okay, where am I get to here? Okay, Brent, next one. There's another picture of the Rossland Ski Cabin. It was a real nice cabin, and there's their jump hill and their slalom run. Jimmy Douglas was really good with us kids, trying to teach us how to turn on the hill here. Okay, next one. This is inside the Rossland Ski Cabin with the old barrel stove there. And there's Tom Colhood here, one of the old Norwegians. That's Dot Van, Bob Van. They had the insurance company in town here, Baker's Insurance, where the insurance office still is down there by the post office. So they had their insurance office there. Really good skiers, both of them. I'm pretty sure this is Jimmy Douglas. It sure looks like him. And that's Dorothy Urquhart and Morton Hoyt and Len Camosi over here. Len won the Grey Mountain Grind one year. And John Buick over here. He was a friend of my older brother's. Okay. That's just another shot of the ski hill there, the bottom of the jump hills. Yep. Okay. And this is a bunch of skiers. I think this is Bart Dudley, and this looks like Bob Van. And I can't place the rest of these guys. But there's Grey Mountain up at the top here. And you can see how barren it was. There was a fire that burned a lot of this off years ago. But you know, when you look and see how it's all grown up now. With this Squaw Basin back up in here. Reno's run now, of course. But that's Grey Mountain. There's granite here. So this is along the ridge on Monte Cristo. Okay. There was our big jump that we built in 1943-44, around that time. And it was before Red Mountain, before the two clubs amalgamated and formed Red Mountain. So this would have been in 1943-44. I was probably 10 or 11 years old then. And so this is just south of where the other, the Rossland Cabin and that was, right in here. And actually this is where the power line goes up to the microwave station now if you're driving out there. And I see somebody, looks like somebody may be going to build in this area now, so there's some work going on in there, so it looks like somebody's going to build in there. This is all grown up pretty well with trees, but just the power line going up there. Okay, next. Here's Al Fisher and my brother Harry. This was in 1950 when they were skiing for Washington State College. They both got ski scholarships down in Washington State College. UBC hosted these intercollegiate ski tournaments, and so it was UBC and Washington State College in Pullman, and University of Washington down in Seattle, and then Moscow, Idaho, and also Montana. So it was all those universities would come up here and compete in those days. Okay, next. Okay. Getting to another map here. Okay, so Deschamps Road here again. And the Feeney Road going down here. And okay, so here is where the Rossland Ski Club was, right here. those pictures you saw. So this was our small hill here, and this is our big jump hill here. Trail Ski Club had their cabin up here, just above where Dr. Flanagan's house is now. So it was just up in there, and their practice fields were all down in here. And so, so we used to ski here and then go over and try to terrorize the trail guys over there. In the spring, it was so much fun in the spring. We would wait in this real spring skiing, and we'd get skating down, all down through the fields here on the hard snow, and go down as far as we could, just booting on the hard snow, and you know, with our old wooden skis, no steel edges yet. And then you know, as the sun warmed up during the day, you'd come just hiking back up in the warm sunshine. It was, oh, they were great days. Those, yeah. Okay, next. Okay. Oh, just back up one there. Sorry, Bryn. Mrs. Hatlovic had lived in this little house right here, and it's actually where Carol Enns lives now. And so Miss Hatlovic used to come over to the Rossland Ski Club, you know, making hot chocolate and coffee and hot dogs for us all. So she was quite the lady. Just come over, walk over, and do that for us. Okay, next. Okay, so this in 1946, winter of 1946-47, is when the two ski clubs got together to form the Red Mountain Ski Club. And I'm not sure whether this was in the parade in 46 or 47. It makes more sense that it might have been in the spring of 47, I don't know. But it was a working model of the Red Mountain chairlift, the original chairlift. And yeah, so I'll tell you, us kids were so happy. We'd never even seen a ski lift before, and so it was going to be the highest and longest one in Canada at the time. And I've got a medallion out on the table there. We sold these medallions for $1 a piece, us kids did, to raise money. And then our parents and that were selling debentures and buying debentures to raise money for the ski lift. So that was pretty exciting for us kids. I'll tell you, we were going to get a ski lift. No more hiking up the hills. Wow, that's something else. Yeah. Okay, next. So this was the early Red Mountain. You can see all the wooden towers going up here. There was a getting off ramp here at Tower 5, another getting off ramp here at Tower 10, and of course at the top. And I can remember that year, 1947, Al and Bob Dixon, they had one of these early two-man McCullough chainsaws. You never saw such a brute as those things. And anyway, it had two handles on one end and one handle the other end of the bar. So they were cutting all the big larch off the run here, and they had a crew of us kids with brush cutters, cutting all the smaller brush with brush cutters and axe, and yeah, next one. So this is the bottom terminal of the original Red Mountain chairlift, and the bull wheel was at the bottom, and the motor was all the way up at the top. And this was all you know, from the Cominco engineers. They had got all the equipment from old mine workings and that, and designed how to build this lift, and also the ski lodge. The original ski lodge was a mine building that had been torn down. So, you know, it was wonderful that Cominco and their engineers did that, got this all going for us. And so you can see the little cars, a few cars parked here in the lineup. You walked up here and came down here. Oh, I got to mention these poles. Bud Scorgie and my brother Harry, they had Mr. Hollabaugh's old skid horse, and so they had the contract of skidding out all the larch poles from the sides to build these for the guys that were building the towers. So they skidded all the logs for the towers. Okay, next. This in the late 50s, this is the pommel lift. And yeah, that was a great machine. That was a real fun machine. Come on, you guys. This is a picture of Eddie and Dixie Shepherd and myself there. And I wish I knew who the kid was on the broken legs. It might have been one of Eddie and Dixie's kids. And anyway, yeah, somebody. Yeah. So that went up a little higher than the T-bar. And more to the left side of that T-bar hill. So, but it was a good lift. You could move a lot of skiers pretty fast on that. Next. So this is another picture of the pommel lift and the original ski lodge. And originally it was all rooms and army bunk beds up in the top there, and that's became the rafter lounge later on. And this was our first packer at Red Mountain. This was before we had any snowcats, and you know, because Ruth and you guys, you all know, we had to do a lot of packing when fresh snow comes. You know, we'd side slip the hill and stuff, and originally it kind of made us mad because the seniors would kick us off the hill on Sunday afternoon. So. But you know, after we helped them pack the run, then we'd have to. But then we'd just go over to the old ski hill and practice jumping and stuff over there. So anyway, this here thing, Lorne McDermott and I, we ran the pommel lift together. So while one of us was running the pommel lift, the other guy would be pulling this thing up. You'd grab a hold of one of these hangers, and the hanger is a couple of tubes, one inside the other with springs inside, and there was like a disc, a frisbee disc on the bottom. And so you just kind of let that thing pull you up the hill. So anyway, we grabbed one of those with this roller and get up as high as we could. We could usually just get up to about the Indian Flats Trail, and then it got too steep after that. So you just turn around and then just skied back down with it behind you, and hope you didn't fall. But it was pretty easy because it was an easy gentle hill, so we could get quite an area packed out, you know, for the instructors for the ski instruction. So that was our first mobile packer on Red Mountain. Next, this one I just wanted to shot. Peter Alder, when he came from Switzerland, he was our manager in the early '60s and that, and him along with Cominco engineers and that decided we needed a lift up granite. So this is so Peter Alder in 1965 organized getting the first lift built up granite. But I wanted to show this picture because here's Monte Cristo, you know, Red Mountain of course, and there was our big jump hill, and there was our smaller hill with our slalom run. So somebody's building in there right now, but there's the highway coming through, eh? Okay, and Caldera was in there. Yeah, that's good, Brent. Okay, where am I going here? Ooh, I think I'm way ahead of myself here. Oh, yeah, I guess what I had mentioned, and Bob Dixon, Al Dixon, when they were cutting all those trees out on the upper slopes, they had 2 logs lined up side by side to make a rail going right down on the left-hand gully when you're looking up the main run of Red. And so they could get the logs over to this log chute, and then just shoot like crazy down to the Indian Flats Trail. And that's they could get a truck into there to haul them out, and that was the reason for that. But it was a lot of work, but they did a great job of building that chute, and boy, those logs just come flying down there. Okay. Yeah, I did get ahead of myself here. Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, guy by the name of Joe Coleman was the first operator on the red chairlift, the old red chairlift, and then Carl Tyndall took over for a few years, and then followed by Fred Simister, who eventually became the foreman out there. And he was a great guy. Old Fred was all kinds of bark, you know, and when you first met him, you'd think, oh my God, this guy, he's a miserable son of a gun. But he was one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. One of those guys that would never ask you to do something he wouldn't do himself. And he was like a monkey around those towers, I'll tell you. And so Fred became our foreman out there, and a great guy to work for. He was a foreman, I guess. He came from over Fernie way, from the coal mines over there. So he had been a boss in the coal mines, so he knew how to handle them. And good man. Oh, the palm left. Oh, we did that already. Okay, yeah, here we go. So we're going to start on some of the barns and houses there. And so this was the Hollaboff farm here. And this eventually in the 1950s, I think it was, that so it was Hollaboff's farm when we were kids. So anyway, and then Feeney's farm down in here, and the Hatlovic farm in here. So anyway, so there was Mrs. Hatlovic's house here. The Hollaboff's farmhouse was right in there, and they had two barns right up in here, and they had another barn just down in the lower field, just below what's now the Centennial Trail. There was a big barn down in there with a hayloft. And I can remember we were a bunch of us. There was Al and Mo Fisher and Chick Jones and Andy Puchoff and Olaf Akkus and Rhubarb McKenna. We were all playing in there hay there one time, and we saw Mr. Hollaboff coming down through the field. So we thought, oh, we'll just hide in the hay. So anyway, Al got hay fever and started sneezing like crazy. We had to run the hell out of there. Anyway, we got away. Yeah, Chuck and Shirley Latoria and the family bought the Hollaboff farm in the 1950s, and in 1968, we'll get to it a bit later, 1968-69 was the year of the big snow. We had 7 feet of snow on the ground, and this barn here caved in. That one had been burned down earlier. So anyway, okay, so that was the hay and the hay. Okay. Okay, next picture, Bryn. Oh yeah, this shows the barns there. That was the two barns. This is the old Reservoir Road, the Champs Road. Red Mountain Road goes up through here. That's the old Hollaboff farmhouse, which Latoria's bought. And this is the barn that caved in that winter in 1968-69. Okay, next one. So this is in that same Hollaboff farm. This was C.A. Peters. This is 1910. Owned that farm originally, and had huge raspberry fields there. So yeah, it's amazing. I know. So, but I know there's raspberry bushes growing wild quite a bit all around that area out there. So yeah. Okay. So C.A. Peters raspberry field. So there you go, Brian. There's all the raspberries for you. Yeah, next. Okay, so we're going to get down to the Feeneys here now. The Feeneys bought this farm in 1950. I think it was a pre-provider named Molinaro that owned it originally. So this was the Feeney farm, their backfield down here. And I get Maureen, I was talking to her the other day. I was kind of hoping she'd be here, but Louise was fighting an infection in the hospital, so couldn't. Anyway, this was the Feeney house right here, And they built a brand new barn. Well, first of all, they had to fix up the house. It was really needed a lot of fixing up, and they also had a house in town, so when it was really cold weather, they could stay in their house in town, right near the old fire hall, the city hall there. And then they built a real nice modern barn down here. And they used to run about 30 head of cows and calve them out, 30 head of cows, and they'd keep them in the barn for the winter. And they accumulated a huge manure pile. We'll get to that in a minute. First of all, they used to put up all their hay down here by hand and haul it in, pitchfork it on their hay wagon, and I can remember being out there helping with Louis, and because Louis is married to Maureen Feeney, and so anyway, they raised. They had a family of 10 kids, 3 girls and 7 boys, so it was quite a family, I'll tell you. And so anyway, they would put all that loose hay, and they had the forks come down out of the hay mound, grab a whole pile of hay off the hay wagon. They had it all rigged up on pulleys and get it all pulled back into the hay mound. And eventually, in the 60s, they got a baler, and they were able to start baling hay. They also made hay out here in Torson's fields and stuff, and so quite a undertaking. Oh, yeah, the thing about the manure I was going to say. Kamenko wanted to buy all the manure off them. And so here we see all the Kamenko trucks coming down, hauling all this manure out of here. And so I thought, oh, okay, there's the elephant brand fertilizer going. I wish I'd have taken a picture of it, Okay, the next one. Okay, this is a map of the first farm we bought. That was the Hatlevick farm. It was 127 acres here. This is the road going down into Feeney's. And this is Deschamps Road going up here. This is where the Rock Cut pub is right now. And so Audrey and I bought that in 1961 and moved into the little house that was right in about here. Michelle and Philippe Cordier bought that farm office quite a few years ago. So, okay, next one, Bryn. So this is the old barn on the Hatlevick farm there, and this barn was gone when we bought it. It had burned down. Mr. Hatlevick had sold the farm to the Edlunds in the 1950s, and I'm not sure whether the barn burned down when the Edlunds had it or what, but anyway, he had built a new a shed roof barn, almost a flat roof barn down in here. It was, I guess, probably with a lot of the lumber that came from that. I'm not sure, but and then this is the barn and some other sheds there, and the little house is just down in here. So we can get to the house next. There's the little house that we moved into when we first bought the farm, and there was no insulation in there. It was cold as heck until the snow all piled up around the sides. And I can remember that first winter, our water line froze up, and so we were hauling water from the little creek that was over here all winter. And then that spring, I remember digging it up, and it was only 6 inches in the ground. So I don't know how they kept that thing going before we bought the place. But anyway, they must have left the taps going wide open. So I got it buried, and then there was a big sawdust pile because there used to be a sawmill over here, and so we had all the sawdust. So we insulated all the attic with sawdust and got as much down in whatever walls we could, which really helped from then on. And this shows the house in the wintertime. Had to shovel out the windows a bit so we could see out. Next one. Now, this is Audrey with our oldest daughter, Lorraine. And this is the house getting kind of snowed in here. And the same thing here. Okay. Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more. The barn that Augie Edlund had built was just up in here, and in that heavy snow years, 68, 69, we were still living down in the house here, and I had shoveled that barn roof off once that winter, and I was working at Ski Lodge, and I came home at noon one time on the next day. That was on the Monday, and my day off was going to be on Tuesday. I was going to shovel it again on Tuesday. The darn thing, I came home at noon, and Audrey didn't hear a thing from in the house, but it had already caved in. And so we had 3 calves and a milk cow and a horse in the barn. The horse and the cow, they survived. We lost 2 calves, and the other calf survived. But yeah, it was not a nice thing to come home to, I'll tell you. Anyway, that's life. And so there's more. Yeah, go ahead, Bren. Yeah, that same winter, that was the year of the big snow again. We lost our barn. Feeney's lost their garage, which was right out here on the road, right there. And then Latoya's lost their barn here, and the school auditorium caved in that same morning, early in the morning. And we were so lucky because our kids were going to be into they were going to be in that auditorium that morning to an assembly, and it caved in just real early in the morning, so we were so fortunate. Yeah, brand new school, caved in. Okay. Okay. So, when we first bought this farm here, right here, that 127 acres. We bought that in '61, and then Mr. Hatlovic, he still owned this property up in here. So he said he gave us a good deal and asked us if we would buy the rest of it. So we begged and borrowed and tried to get enough money for a down payment, and so we were able to get it. The bank wouldn't loan us any money, but with family, friends, and that, we were able to raise a down payment and bought it. So right away, Department of Highways comes out that same year, 1962. Highway wasn't quite finished yet; they were still working on it, and they said we were going to buy that 8 acres for a gravel pit right here, and we're going to pay you $50 an acre. And so I thought, oh my God, that's not very much money for that much land. So anyway, we went to a couple of lawyers, and they said, well, nothing, you better take it, because the way the rules read, the Department of Highways can take 5% of your land without compensation for road building. So we decided to take it. So we got $400 for that piece of land there. So anyway, and then soon after that, I got another gravel pit started right down here, and I was able to sell sand to the city, and also had a dump truck and was hauling gravel into town and stuff for people's driveways or whatever they wanted it for. It wasn't really good for making cement, but it was good for road building. So anyway, when the Department of Highways took it, that's when they built this road into the gravel pit, and that's Man Road now. So anyway, Audrey and I, when we were still living down here in the early '60s, and lived there for a while, and then this road was all nicely built, the highway was all finished. We decided in 1968, '69 that we would move and build a house up in here. So we cleared this bit of land here, and this is where we built our log house, right here. And this field was already there, and this field was already there. And so through the years after we built the house and moved up in there, I was able to clear these fields and join the fields together. Okay. Oh yeah, you can go to the next one, Brent. Yeah, that's building our log house out there, and so we got all all the poles, the lodge poles were nice and straight, so they made all the walls. And I used larch for the beams here. And I just looked out at cabins that were a lot higher than we were, with heavier snow loads, and saw what they could hold, and I just doubled everything and figured I'd never have to shovel it again. And so the next shot. So that's the winter. We hadn't moved into the house yet. We just got the shell built. That was the year of the big snow, 7 feet on the ground. That's 6'6" on top of the house. That's the only time I shoveled that roof, though. We had some big snows, through the years since then. But I didn't want the green beams to bow, so that's why I shoveled it that winter. Okay, next. Okay, so we're going to back up a bit, and early years, this is the Deschamps Road. This is before the highway was built. There originally was in 1912, they had built a trestle bridge right across here, right across Topping Creek. It's called Stony Creek in those days, so bear with me, I might be calling it Stony or Topping. So anyway, in 1929, that bridge was condemned. And so in 1930, May 5th, 1930, they were dismantling that bridge. And Alfie Alvo Sr. Was a member of the crew at the time, and he was driving truck, and he had just been on that bridge, and they were dismantling it, and it caved in and killed 4 guys. 3 guys right away, 4 guys, 1 guy died in the hospital, and another guy was badly injured. Alfie Alvo was right there, saw it all, so it must have been a horrific sight for him to see and everything. So there's quite a story about it in the paper here, and also I got a copy of it out there by Alfie. And so they had built a new bridge across here. So this is the bridge that was there when we were kids to get out to Barry's Ranch and stuff. And it's gone now too. It's rotted away, but it was still there when we were building the house here, and we had an old cement tank from the tank rooms in Kameko sitting down in the house here, so I thought, oh boy, or no, over here, where am I? Get it wrong, right here. And so anyway, I decided, okay, I'm going to use that for a septic tank up at the new house, so I put it on skids, and I had a little crawler tractor at the time, and so I hauled it all the way up the road here. I was a little worried about going across the bridge with the tractor and that, so I pushed it on as far as I could from behind, and then went down through the creek here and backed up and then hooked onto it from the other side, and then got it up into where we built the house. And as far as I know, Raymond, that's what you're using today. So anyway, carrying on out here to well, I should back up. Here's the City of Rossland water line coming in here. And used to come in through here, right through where Phil Johnson lives now. Come right in through here and dumped into Topping Creek. And they would catch it here with the dam. And so anyway, the dam is still there. But anyway, in the 1960s, I was working for the city, and they were replacing all this old wood stave pipe with transite pipe, which was asbestos cement pipe, and they're replacing that all now. But anyway, in the 1960s, they were replacing all this pipe with this transite pipe, and we couldn't get machinery in through the Blue Eyes Swamp here. And so I had this old skid horse. So old Bert Rossi said, well, we'll lay a bunch of planks down there for you, and we can skid them in with your horse. So I had an old Fresno, which is one of those old dirt movers that used to scrape the dirt with the horses, and we just turned it around backwards, and we were able to, and took the handles off it, and we were able to get 2 pipes in it, and so we just used old Nancy to haul all those pipe in down there. She did a great job, just walking on the planks. So that's how we got that in. Now the new water line is all plastic now, and it's coming up, bypassing all this area, comes down in here to the new Ophir Reservoir. Okay, where was I going with that? It's easy to get tangled off on different tangents here. Okay, that's all done, that's condemned, that's tore down. Okay, so it was in the old days, the Shamps Road here, this was all Barry's Ranch when we were kids. Barry's Lumberyard, they were a big outfit in town. And I can remember a man by the name of Kennedy was farming out here at the time. And he was just leasing it all from Barry's Lumber Company. And I can remember walking out here, and there used to be a big hay barn right here, right at the start of Barry's field. This is all blackjack now, eh? And so there used to be a big hay barn right here. So they had a stationary horse-powered baler going right here. So they were hauling all the hay out of the field here to the baler, and just fork it into the baler, and the horse would go around and around, work the plunger, and they were making their bales that way. That old baler is still out here in Torson's field, and I can remember seeing it, you know, when I was running cows out there and stuff, but I was always wanted to get it into the museum. All the iron parts were still there. The wood stuff was all gone, but all the iron was still there. But then when I went out there a few years back, somebody had run over it with a machine and banged it up, and it was all mangled. So it's too bad, because it would have been nice to have that in here at the museum. I should have got it in when I was thinking of it earlier. But anyway, next, Brent. This is a picture of it, and this is exactly like the one that was out in Torson's field there, and it's still there, but it's all mangled up now. Next picture. This is at Fort Steele, so I wanted to get a picture of it. You know, they have one that's a working model over there at Fort Steele. And so you can see where the horse goes around and around and works the big plunger. Next picture, Red. Yeah, and then when they get so much hay in, they slip a piece of plywood in there, throw the hay wire in. It was all wire, they were all wire tied. Stick the wires through, come around and hand tie it. And those would have been about 100-pound bales. They were pretty husky bales. Yeah. Okay. All right, where are we going to next, Brent? Okay, oh yeah, so this is the Torson house out there in Torson Field, Blackjack. And the foundation is still there. And talking to John D'Arcangelo, his aunt was Mrs. Torson. So anyway, we figured that this is a Tobiason family. And then that's the old house there. Next one. This is Mrs. Torson here. So this would have been John D'Arcangelo's aunt. And that's Norma Torson, their oldest daughter. She became an RN. She was a year ahead of me in school, and she married a guy I went to school with, Roy Thomas. Okay, next. There's Myrnie Torson, who I went to school with. We graduated together. This is John D'Arcangelo's dad, Seti D'Arcangelo, and so he was a brother to Mrs. Torson. So this is the buildings out there at Torson Farm. And okay, next one. And there's Myrnie Torson here. There's Seti there, and John figures that you figure that's you, eh, John?
Yes.
Yeah. And this is their grandfather here, who was a blacksmith. And I can remember getting a real nice cutter-type sleigh from out there that we used to put in some of the Santa Claus parades with one of our horses. And so this must have been Mrs. Torson here, maybe, I'm not sure, but there's some of the, and that's the old car they had out there. But it was pretty tough living out there in the wintertime. And I'll get rid of this card. I was able, because I went to school with Myrnie, we became pretty good friends, and so I was able to stay at the old house out there a few times, and so it was kind of neat. But Myrnie never liked living out there, and Myrnie actually went into the RCMP and became an inspector eventually, and in the wintertime, it was pretty tough living out there because there was no road plowed out there. So they would come into town with a horse and sleigh. Old Mr. Torson, he worked at Cominco, so they'd come in with a They also had a house in town, across from the courthouse in town here on Columbia Avenue. So the kids would stay there a lot in the wintertime to go to school and stuff, and same with Mrs. Thorson. But long ago, we stayed out there looking after the cows and stuff, and come in with the horse and sleigh, tie it up at the top end of Flumen Way there, and then walk down, catch the co-op car down to work, come back up, walk up and then go with the horse and sleigh all the way back out to the farm. So talk about a long day, coming in the dark and going back out in the dark. It's hard to believe people, were that tough in those days, yeah. Okay, next one. Okay, we're gonna leave the farms here for now. We're gonna head for Old Glory. This was the first lookout on Old Glory, 1926. And I don't think you'd want to sleep in this one in the storm. So Joe Coleman was the first lookout man, and I'm not sure, maybe one of these guys is him, I don't know. I got this from the BC Archives. Next one, Ben. So there it is up here, and then they must have been staying in this tent down here, and I'm kind of thinking that was probably at the water hole at the base of Old Glory, because it's down in the trees there. So that makes sense, they'd stay where there was water, and then after a storm, they'd hike up to the lookout, and then they'd have their big table there with their map on and their sighting stuff, so they could connect with Bulldog Mountain and Centennial Mountain if they saw smoke, and they'd triangle and zero in on exactly where the fire was with the topographical maps. Okay, so this is the forestry station lookout when that's what it was like when we were young. It was a board siding and a fairly steep roof and everything, and this was John Melville, Dottie Irvin, Evie Johnson, and Mr. Irvin. They used to own the Irvin Hotel, which is where the Prestige is now. And in here they call it the Old Glory Weather Station, but it's not. It's the forestry lookout. Okay. So there's the forestry lookout gun. This is Lloyd Bryant. He was one of the meteorology boys up there. Next. This is what it looks like today. Now, I don't know when it was rebuilt, but it had to have been rebuilt with plywood and not quite as steep a roof. But anyway, it was like this, and it was starting to get a bit tattered through the years. But friends of the Rossland Range, Kim Dean and all that bunch, they decided they were going to restore it. So they've really done a real nice job of restoring that. And inside here, there's in the lookout, there was a big round table, like I mentioned before, with a topographical map on it, and the sighting tools, and all the degrees, 360 degrees on the map, so you could always get your bearings off that whenever you saw smoke. Okay. This one here, a lady phoned me one time from the trail, and I wish I remember the lady's name. I can't for the life of me. She said, I got this old plaque in my basement. Yes, you might be interested in it. So I said, yeah, I'd come down and have a look at it. Well, I was really surprised when I saw what it was. It was all the lookout man on Old Glory. So Joe Coleman, the first guy, Jack Killow from Castlegar, he became ranger there. Wilf Gibbard from 1938 to 47. And then Mrs. Gibbard, when Wolf took over packing to the Met Station, Ruth Gibbard, she hired on as a lookout person that winter. And that's Jim Waldy and Bert Thames. He was a friend of mine from Renata. And all these guys. So I was really excited. So I got it up here to the museum right away. So they've got it. So yeah, next. So this just shows the trails going up to Old Glory. This is the highway, of course, here. And this was Wilf Gibbard's. This was what we called O'Brien's Camp, which Wilf Gibbard used to have the family out there and the horses all summer long. And so they raised all their kids out there in the summertime. And so this was the original camp before they built the highway. And this was the horse trail going all the way up to the Met Station in Old Glory. And of course, this is the shorter hiking route. A lot of you people know that now. So when the highway was built, Wolf bought a couple of school buses and moved them in here, and then built a few other shelters for the horses. So it made the trip a little shorter for him. Next. This is Wolf Gibbard. Get rid of one of these here. Yeah, there we go. This is Wolf Gibbard in the parade in 1958 with all his pack horses. So this would have been the Fall Fair Parade. Next. And here is Wolf Gibbard and Caroline Taylor and Ruth Grubisic. Heading up to Old Glory. Caroline Taylor, she graduated with me, and she married Stan Brenner, one of the Old Glory guys. And of course, Ruth, you know, was Al Fisher's partner. Okay. And this is the weather station, the way it looked when we were young, and Wolf Gibbard's pack string. Next one. That's the same thing again with the pack horses. Next one. Oh, that back on that one. That's okay. That's just Daryl and me skiing up to Old Glory. Go for it. This is Wolf Gibbard's pack string. I really like this picture. Look how good a shape his horses are in. You know, and they're working every day almost. You know, packing supplies up that steep hill. You know, and the air gets pretty thin up there. But boy, I'll tell you what. And he never liked the big horses. He's in my camp. I like the little smaller horses. It's easier to reach, and you know, they can pack almost as much as these big horses can. So yeah. So that's Wolf's pack string there. Okay, next one. There's Wolf Gibbard there in his early 90s. He was living at Christina Lake at the time. This was in the old fire hall in 2006. Kim Dean had organized a gathering to promote the Rossland Range. So went over and got Wolf Gibbard, brought him over, and so he had all kinds of stories to tell that night. It was really interesting. So he was such a great guy. Well, the whole family was, him and Ruth. They were a couple of characters, I'll tell you, and always had lots of stories and always had a laugh. And he's got his forestry hat on there. So, okay, next. This is the ridge cabin, which is halfway along Unnecessary Ridge. And this was built as a halfway cabin for anybody hiking up to Old Glory in the wintertime. And so that's Alec Puchoff and Bob Bowen. Bob Bowen, they were a couple of years younger. I grew up with Andy Puchoff, Alex's older brother. But they're the guys that built Poochie's cabin on top of Red Mountain. And but it was quite a cabin, and full of pack rats, of course. But anyway, the Old Glory guys, when they were coming up in the wintertime, of course, they'd have to come up through the Indian Flats Trail, the Squaw Basin, come up right up to and stay in the Yodel Inn and overnight, and then leave the next day up on the back of Gray. And if they couldn't make it to the top of Old Glory that next day, they would stay in Unnecessary Ridge overnight. And then from there, make it up to the Old Glory. And up on Old Glory, there was all these marker poles. And a lot of them are still standing there. And they were put there, above tree line. So in the fog and in stormy weather, they could go from pole to pole. And a lot of those poles are still hanging up in there. Next. This is the Old Glory weather station in the wintertime. You can see how they need to shovel out the windows there. The weather station was built in 1941-42. What's that? Yeah. So this is a stairway going in, all buried in here. So anyway, you can imagine those guys had to come out and take the weather every day and stuff. Not an easy life, that's for sure. So it was built in 1941-42. The long lumber to build the place, there was no helicopters then, and So it was all hauled in by horseback, and Wilf Gibbard hauled most of that stuff in there, and they hauled the lumber in, the long lumber in travoy style, you know, like the old Indian travoys, hauled it in that way, and then the gravel for the cement was hauled in on the panniards, on the pack horses. And so it was George Guys that organized the horses. George Guys was an old horseman, lived over Midway, Rock Creek way, and he was quite the character when we were young. He'd be coming through with a string of horses from over that way, and he'd be buying and selling horses all the way across. So I'm sure Wilf Gibbard got a lot of his, well, I know he did, got some of his horses off old George Guys. But he'd be coming right through, and I don't know how far east he'd go, maybe over Creston, I don't know. But that was his summer, just walking through with a string of horses, buying and selling. Joe Lewis from Princeton, he was the first packer that started packing supplies into the Met boys here. There was three meteorology boys that were stationed at the cabin here and maintained it. Wilf Gibbard took over the packing in 1948. And he kept packing till 1968 when the station burned down. Okay, Brent? So there's that must have been right at the beginning of winter or something. Maybe it was in May or August or September, who knows? But, you know, not much snow on the ground, but they must have had quite a blizzard that night. So here's the weather station up here. And there's the meteorology station. That's the goat hole, eh? Okay, next. This is, so the Met station had 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, an office, a living room, and a full basement. And so this is a shot of the kitchen in there. Next. This is one of the Old Glory boys. I don't know, he's probably what he's got in there, maybe firewood or what, I don't know, but this was down lower, that's for sure. But this is the radio room and the office. Next, there's Bud Matheson, one of the fellows I knew up there, and he's letting off a helium balloon, and there's his theodolite there, the transit, and they would let off a helium balloon, and they would track its trajectory up in as it went up in elevation, and so they could get the wind velocities at different elevations up there, and then they would radio that information into the radio station over at Carmi, BC, and that's over there by Beaverdale. Okay, and because there was 3 guys up there, they were able to have one or 2 guys. They were only supposed to have 1 guy go to town at a time, but I know darn well they had a couple guys, and the other guy would take the measurements up there. But they had their room right up here in the old Allen Hotel, and so I can remember being up there a few times and having a few beers with those guys. This was the old Allen Hotel. Men's side and the women's side, ladies and escorts side. Those were the days. And yeah, so that was the original Allen Hotel. And yeah, okay. Okay, Bren. Wilf Gibbard and Joe Killo laid the first telephone line up from the BC Tel building down here in town, which is our seniors building now, and that was the old BC Tel building. So it was just a single line on trees, and they used the earth as a ground. And but on the upper levels where it was more convenient, Wilf Gibbard laid a whole bunch of armored lead-covered cable just on the ground. And when you go up there, you'll see a lot of that cable is still laying there on the ground. And actually some of this wire, this is out on Deschamps Road, 1951. Ron Oxley, he was the assistant ranger, And so this was my first job with the forestry, so we were repairing the line along Deschamps Road that spring, 1951. So that's how I got started with forestry, and that summer ended up on suppression crew out in Castlegar. Okay. That was Bert Taves from Renata. He was my friend from Renata. That's before Renata was flooded. I actually got up to visit Renata and the old orchards, a beautiful area up there. And it's too bad it all got flooded with the Arrow Lakes, but yeah. But they had their farm up there. And so Bert, he actually, a few years after this, he became lookout man on Old Glory. Okay, next. Oh, that's just some more of those. We can move on. 1951, Daryl Sir and I had a chance to ski up. Daryl was a friend of mine. He grew up in that little yellow house on Leroy Avenue by the credit union. That yellow house in the corner, that's where Daryl and Robin and their younger brother grew up, Jimmy. And so Daryl and I, we skied a lot together in the backcountry, and so we had the chance to take the mail up to the boys in Old Glory. So it probably was in late February, early March, because it looks like the weather was pretty good. I can't remember. It was 1951 anyway, and pretty nice weather. And so these are just some of the trees, ghosts we call them, and that's all the burnt out trees along the unnecessary ridge. And this is Daryl outside there. So we were able to stay up there for a couple of nights because they had one spare bedroom because one of the guys was down in town. So that was kind of neat. So next. Well, there's Daryl Sir there. That's the Met Station here. And I like this picture because my mom knit me that sweater. That was my ski sweater. I really just loved that sweater. Yeah. Our old wooden skis, eh? We didn't have skins either. We used to put on Red Wonder wax, real heavy for climbing, or high speed. High speed was the American Army wax. So those are our two waxes that we had. And just kind of wipe them off a little bit to go downhill. So, okay, next. This is the Squaw Basin cabin. The Rossland Ski Club had the biggest cabin up there in Squaw Basin, and it burned down quite a few years ago. But it had a big loft upstairs. It was divided into men's and ladies' sides. And so when holidays or long weekends or something, we'd leave and we'd be able to go up there and stay for a few nights and ski all the hills around. There was no chairlifts yet, and we were just young, so we'd hike up from town all the way up there, and so that's where the Grey Mountain Grind started way up. Well, that's a whole other story. I won't get into that one. And but anyway, there was another cabin just down here. It belonged to Bert Fulton. And then just along the trail here, heading up towards Eternity Rock, there was Bob Van's cabin and Judge Fluman's cabin. And then farther up along on the other side here was the Clister Club, which is still there. And then up past Eternity Rock and on up farther was Hugh Williams' cabin, the old Lynn. Yeah, that's the farthest one up there. Okay, next. And that's a bunch of us at the Rossland Ski Cabin. That's Mo Fisher, Bill Bradshaw, Rhubarb McKenna, Donnie Swift, Bill Stevens. And that's myself there. And that's the bunch of us up on top of Record Mountain. It's Old Glory in the background there. It's Unnecessary Ridge. Okay. I think that's, I think that's, what time? Oh my gosh, yes. Sorry to keep you going so long. I was going to start to get into a little bit of Booty, but that's a whole other story. Booty outfitted us kids all the time and had a shop in town, and we just tormented his shop all the time after school. But anyway, he was so great. He outfitted all the Old Glory guys with brand new head skis. First time we ever saw metal skis when they outfitted the Old Glory guys. And sealskins. Holy cow, that was something new to have sealskins. And he takes them out into Ozeros field here in the southwest corner of Rossland. They had a jump hill, little ski run there. Booty would take them out there and teach them all how to snowplow, and then, because most of these guys didn't know how to ski when they went up to Old Glory, and so Booty would give them a few lessons and they'd send them on their way. So I think the only guy that really knew how to ski was one of the first guys, and that was Bart Dudley. He was one of the early guys up on the Met Station. So thanks for coming, everybody, and I want to thank Skyler for getting this organized, and it's a lot of work for you guys to put all this on, so great job. Thanks, Skyler.
Thank you so much, Richie. That was such an incredible presentation, although I kind of expected it would be. So one more round of applause, please.
On the back table out here, I brought some pictures that were painted by Bob Bowen. And yeah, Chris, you've got, either you or one of your families got these pictures too. They're painted by Bob Bowen of the Old Glory Lookout and Wilson Pack String. And another one, we took Bob up on horses one time, and so he took a picture of us and he painted it. So there's a small painting, a copy of the other painting he made of us going up Old Glory. Graham Jones is in that picture. So, thank you.
All right, so we still have some of the snacks and drinks left, so if you want to clear out those, that'll do us a big help. And just to remind you guys, June 6th, we have another speaker series coming up, all about that, so you won't want to miss that one. Thanks everyone for coming up. Have a great evening.